Trail of that hit-and-run driver leads to a woman with a horrendous driving record and a long history of avoiding the consequences. Here's Action News investigator Scott Lewis. Scott?
Stephen and Carolyn, you're about to see a car accident caught on tape. It's not a serious crash, just a fender bender. But the story's not about the damage. It's about what police didn't do when a hit-and-run driver called for help, and what they would have found if they had investigated as we did. The damage is identical. You want to just tell us what happened? The woman fleeing the Channel 7 investigators has no business behind the wheel of a car. Her license is suspended, and she just ran that stop sign. But this is nothing unusual for Rebecca Elwagi. Check out her driving record. It's 6 pages long. She's been caught driving on a suspended or invalid license 13 times. She's been cited for driving without insurance, speeding, ignoring traffic signals, the child restraint law, and making illegal turns. She has arrest warrants out in Birmingham and Detroit, and she owes Detroit $2,100 in unpaid traffic fines. This woman has been thumbing her nose at the law for 14 years, and she's still driving. Worse yet, she may have gotten away with another one at this gas station in Hamtramck. You're about to see a hit-and-run accident caught on a security camera. You can decide whether Rebecca Elwagi was behind the wheel and whether police should have pursued this. An SUV comes flying into the parking lot with its headlights off and bam, plows into the back of Joe Zago's car.
When I got out of the car to see what happened, they threw it in reverse and their lights were off and they went, full speed back into Caniff and then just took off back into Hamtramck.
Joe and his employee, who was standing outside the car, chased after the hit-and-run driver. Joe got the plate number. His employee got a good look at the driver's face, and the gas station security camera got the whole thing on tape. Joe called Hamtramck police and figured this was a slam dunk. But when Officer Amy Buchel showed up, Joe was stunned. She told him, "We don't take accident reports on private property."
I thought that if someone left the scene of an accident, that it's a criminal issue. At that point, it's not. It's a hit and run. And she said, "No, we don't. If you don't like it, you can come down to the station and talk to my lieutenant."
And that's exactly what Joe did. Drove to the Hamtramck Police Department and went inside to talk to the officer's supervisor. To Joe's surprise, Officer Buchel was already there, waiting.
And she's leaning back with her her arms crossed like this and had a big grin on her face, and the other 2 cops are up at the front. I told them what happened, and they said, "Oh, yeah, we already heard. We're not investigating it."
They told Joe Zago to have a good night, and that was the end of it. Until he called the Channel 7 investigators. You want us to try to find this driver?
Yeah, I'd love to.
So who's right here? I checked the state motor vehicle code, and it does say that police are not obligated to take a report when an accident happens on private property. But there's another part of the law that deals specifically with cases like Joe's, and he's right. His wasn't just an accident, it was a crime. Section 268 says if you have an accident on private property open to travel by the public and you leave the scene, it's a misdemeanor that could get you 90 days in the clink and a $1,000 fine. So here you've got a crime caught on tape with a license plate number and a witness who says he can identify the driver. And Hamtramck police did nothing, but we did.
The bumper obviously needs to be replaced. My light's broken. My trunk is screwed up over here.
Joe's car took a hit, but the SUV that hit him left some DNA behind. Plastic parts that fell to the pavement during the crash. So I did what Hamtramck cops probably should have done. I ran the license plate on the SUV that hit Joe's car. It took me only a few minutes to find the Durango, registered to an address just 2.5 blocks from the accident scene. And there was front-end damage. The Durango was registered to a 64-year-old woman, but the witness said the driver was much younger than that. So we did a stakeout, and before long, we saw this young woman driving it. When she pulled up in front of her house one day, we were waiting. Time to grab those broken parts and have a little come to Jesus. Are you missing some parts from your car?
Not that I knew of, no.
Did you rear end someone down at the gas station at Caniff and I-75?
Oh, no, I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
She looked like a deer in the headlights, and I wasn't about to take her word for it. Can I look at the front end of your car and see if you're missing these parts?
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else that looks like you that might have been driving? I took a close look at the front end, and there was no question the parts came off this Durango. It's the housing for the fog lamps behind the hole in the bumper. So we know it's the right car, but how about the driver? I showed her picture to the eyewitness.
Yeah, this is the lady, for sure. I'm 100% positive that's the lady.
The damage is identical. You want to just tell us what happened? And as she roars off, some folks walking down the street tell us they're glad to see us on her case.
She hit my cousin's car 2 weeks ago.
She did?
Yeah, and then couldn't find her. Police, they called the police or whatever. She still do what she do, hit people cars.
It took a little more detective work to find the driver's name, and when I ran her record, it was a shocker. How could someone be caught driving without a license 13 times and still be on the road? And why didn't Hamtramck police do what we did? They would have found 2 arrest warrants. They could have held her for Detroit and Birmingham, where she had skipped out on her court dates. Shouldn't someone hold her accountable?
If the police aren't there to help you, then, you know, who is?
Remember I told you Rebecca Elwagi's Durango was registered in the name of a 64-year-old woman? That woman is Rebecca's mother, and her driving record is 3 pages long. Her license suspended 9 times, cited for driving on a suspended license and an expired license. And she has a warrant out in Hamtramck for failing to show up in court on ordinance violations. Looks like this bad apple didn't fall too far from the tree. I called Amy Buchel, the officer who refused to take the report. She said she was just following department policy. Then I called Hamtramck Police Chief Mark Kalinowski. Because of what we uncovered, Chief Kalinowski says he's reevaluating their policy for taking accident reports on private property. He says he wants to make sure that the department does everything it can do to serve the community. And he said he's going to let us know what happens after he looks at that policy.
All right, Scott, I was taking some notes here. 13 times driving the suspended invalid license. She's got warrants out in at least 2 communities, and she owes thousands to the city of Detroit. Is there any way to, I don't know, just shoot in the dark here, get her off the streets?
Well, there's really nothing in place that they can do. If you get caught twice in 2 years driving on a suspended license, they can keep you from registering your car. But as you saw in the story, you put in somebody else's name. Hers was in her mother's name. Her mom doesn't have a license. But under Michigan law, you don't even need a license to register a car. And a lot of cops say that needs to change.
So bottom line, is she still just driving around? She and her mother, really?
Well, the mother doesn't drive as far as I know, but the neighbors tell me she's still driving. She's parking the Durango, hiding it a couple blocks away, and sneaking out the back alley when she needs to use it.
All right, we know you're on the story. You'll get an answer for us. I know it. All right, Scott, thanks.